Please be seated. President Sullivan, Provost Rojas, board members, faculty, administrative leaders and staff, graduates of the class of 2022, and honored guests. Welcome. Today is a day to celebrate. I do not need to tell you that the last as I was saying, the last couple of years have tested our resilience. Even if nothing else were to happen today, this moment, you are together as a class, in your caps and gowns, with loved ones surrounding you. This moment is one to savor. The perseverance and grit that the class of 2022 has shown will be the subject of ballads and folk songs for generations to come. We honor and congratulate our graduates. This should also be a day of prayerful gratitude. Thanks to God for the gifts of your many talents, for all that you have achieved and received during your time at St. Thomas. Gratitude for the lifelong friendships you have formed here. And gratitude for the family and friends who have supported you on this journey. You are the class of 2022. You chose St. Thomas, a law school dedicated to educating the whole person as the first stage of what will be a career-long journey of professional formation. During your time here, our school has undoubtedly shaped you, but you have also shaped our school. You've come from all over the country and all over the world to contribute to a distinctive law school community that educates students to be morally responsible leaders who think critically, act wisely, and work skillfully to advance the common good. You've shown intelligence and spunk inside our classrooms, both actual and virtual. You've been challenged by all of our professors, inspired by many, and terrified by a few. You have advocated for the immigrant, for the elderly, for the poor, for the prisoner. You've expanded our law school's footprint into the compliance departments of more Fortune 500 companies than ever before. Whether a JD, LL.M, or M.S.L student, you've juggled jobs, health challenges, family issues, and a formidable workload that occupied evenings and weekends to earn the right to walk across this stage. You've become experts on Zoom, projected your classroom voices enough to be heard through a mask, and realized just how far 6 feet is when you're trying to have a casual hallway conversation. You came to downtown Minneapolis not knowing that in the wake of George Floyd's murder, our city would become the epicenter of a global reckoning with racial injustice. We are grateful for the many ways you have helped build this law school, shape the nature of our community, advanced our mission, and shown a degree of personality that has been welcome and energizing. As your dean, and on behalf of our faculty, staff, trustees, and board of governors, I extend our thanks and gratitude. Before we proceed further, I'd like to introduce our platform party to you. Starting from my left, we first have Dr. Julie Sullivan, president of our university. Dr. Sullivan will be conferring the degrees today. Next to Dr. Sullivan is Dr. Eddie Rojas, provost of our university. Next is Catherine Grothe, representing the university's Board of Trustees. Sandy Smalley-Fleming, chair of our law school's Board of Governors. Alex Tittle, also representing our Board of Governors. And Madeline Haberman, our student speaker and member of the class of 2022. And finally, our keynote speaker, Mr. Scott Swanson. I would now like to invite the Wenger Family Distinguished Faculty Fellow, Father Dan Griffith, to deliver the invocation.
Good and gracious God, God of justice and peace, You are the source of truth, goodness, and beauty. Today, O Lord, we come before you with hearts filled with gratitude for these law graduates, made in your divine image and united in dignity and our common humanity. They have enriched and strengthened our community with their presence, passion, and gifts. As we celebrate their law graduation today, and as they prepare to soon work in the noble profession of law, bless them, guide them, and allow them always to know of your great love and care. Bless, too, Lord, the profession of law and all lawyers throughout the world. May the gift of law always be oriented to justice and the common good. Guide all lawyers to recognize our high calling and responsibility to use law for good and noble purposes, to repair harm, to restore, to mend, to protect, and to heal. Help, we pray, our law graduates and all lawyers to engage our profession, clients, and communities with compassion and humility. God of life, on this day, we are mindful of all who suffer, our sisters and brothers in our community, in this nation and throughout the world. In our world beset with violence, division, and injustice, guide the course and work of our law graduates to pay special heed to those who suffer on the margins, to be a voice for the voiceless, tireless advocates for the bowed down and weary. Lastly, Lord, we know that you are a God of joy and mirth. We thank you for the joy we feel today on this happy occasion of the graduation of these law students. May joy and purpose accompany them throughout their vocation as lawyers and in their generous service of all those they encounter in the practice of law. Amen.
Thank you, Father Griffith. Before we proceed to our next speaker, let me call your attention to our commencement program. Each of you should be able to find your favorite member of the class of 2022 listed in the program with their prior undergraduate and graduate degrees. This long list of names might seem just that, a long list of names. But we know better. Each name you see is the center of someone's world. And speaking on behalf of our faculty and staff, we try to remember that every day we get to spend with them. Each one of these graduates has contributed in unique ways to our law school community and richly deserves our congratulations. But let me take a brief moment to call your attention to several students who deserve special recognition. In your program, we first list and recognize those students who are likely to achieve high academic honors in our JD program, reflecting 3 years of truly exceptional academic performance and achievement. On the next page, we list the students who have logged at least 100 hours of service to our community. As most of you know, our School of Law requires students to dedicate at least 50 hours to community service. The graduates who have performed more than 100 hours have gone above and beyond this requirement, embodying our law school vision that we are all asked by God to serve others, particularly those who are most in need. We then list the graduates who volunteered more than 50 law-related service hours under the auspices of the Minnesota Justice Foundation. Together, the class of 2022 has performed more than 12,000 hours of community service during their time at law school. On behalf of the many you have served, thank you. Finally, we highlight those students whose contributions to our distinctive mission have been so remarkable that we presented them over the past 3 years with our mission awards. These students have embodied our mission of integrating faith and reason in the search for truth through a focus on morality and social justice. Please join me in congratulating these students in particular for their academic achievement, their leadership, and their service. I would also like to take a moment to thank the class of 2022 for one more important contribution. Like the previous classes, this class has presented the School of Law with a class gift. This year's class has contributed to the creation of a wellness room on the law school's lower level. Nearly 80% of the class has contributed to this gift. And I would especially like to thank the 3L class representatives who worked on the class of 2022 gift, B. Hansen and Thomas McDermott. Thank you. I am now pleased to introduce Madeline Haberman. The members of the class of 2022 selected Madeline to address our graduation ceremony on their behalf, and an inspired choice you have made. Madeline came to St. Thomas Law after graduating from the University of Wisconsin and working at a large law firm. During law school, she has served as president of student government, secretary of the Public Service Board, and treasurer of the Greater Minnesota Practice Cooperative. She will be bringing all these experiences and her considerable gifts and values with her back home to Owatonna, where she will practice at the firm Einhaus, Madison, Carver, and Haberman. A word to Madeline's family, particularly her mom, Kristen, and her dad, Patrick. Madeline has shown excellent leadership, has exhibited an unshakable dedication to improving the lives of those around her, has formed strong friendship, and has worked hard. Not only is she going to make the world a better place, she has already made the world a better place. And let me make a broader point. The reason I've spent a couple of minutes telling you about Madeline is to underscore the fact that every single one of our graduates has a story to tell. A story of hard work, of stress, of uncertainty, of friendship, of resilience, of perseverance, of achievement, and of a vocation that calls them to use their gifts to advance the common good. We don't have time for each one of these amazing graduates to share their stories, so they've selected Madeline to speak for them all. So now, class of 2022, please welcome your choice to speak on your behalf, Madeline Haberman.
Thank you, Dean Fisher, Dean Nichols, Dr. Sullivan, Scott Swanson, faculty and staff here today, generous benefactors, trustees, and the Board of Governors, friends, family, classmates. I am truly honored to be standing here today. Woo! Happy graduation day, class of 2022. I am so excited to be standing with you here today, graduating from Zoom School of Law. I mean St. Thomas, of course. I do want to take a quick second and say Dean Fisher made me sound so cool, but that is just a fraction of how awesome this class is. Every single one of you, your personal stories that have gotten you to this finish line are incredible, and I'm so inspired by all of you. I do have to warn you before I jump in. I did prepare for this speech by watching Elle Woods' commencement speech in Legally Blonde. But instead of just being able to quote Aristotle and some feel-good words, we do have to address the elephant in the room, COVID. Because if there was one defining aspect of our law school experience, it was the fact that on top of papers and exams, late-night study sessions, and early morning coffees, our lives were being completely unsettled by a global pandemic. So getting here today is an extraordinary feat in and of itself. But let us also not forget that our experience has been shaped by confrontations with racial injustice, unrest in our nation's capital, and most recently a war in Ukraine. Because of all of that, if there is one thing that I have learned from our time in law school, is that a good lawyer needs to know how to roll with the punches, because you never know what is about to come next. In fact, many of my classmates here today have been able to tackle everything that has been thrown at them and more. From winning moot court awards to advocating in front of the Minneapolis City Council, arguing in front of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and racking up over 12,200 service hours. That's incredible. And not all these accomplishments over the past 3 years have been law-related. Many of our classmates have gotten married, bought houses, ran marathons, had babies, all while juggling school. Which is to say, we've done a lot. We've been through a lot. I think back to March of 2020 and all that came after. There were so many opportunities for us to isolate ourselves or decide that law school wasn't worth it, but we made it here. We turned to each other to help us cope and often complain, but also to celebrate one another. Through texts and calls, FaceTimes and GroupMes, Abby Peterson's memes, or just sending TikToks back and forth, we found ways to form our own little community. We got to share an experience that no other group of people will, knock on wood. But that resilience and determination is characteristic of this class. If an unforeseen roadblock presents itself, we are able to come up with a creative solution around it. And that perseverance is emblematic of the dedication that this class will bring with them to their future careers. That willingness to seek out or build a community in challenging circumstances speaks to how highly we value human connection. Now, as many of my classmates know, I have recently become a big fan of Formula One racing. And my biggest takeaway from waking up early on Sunday mornings this far is that to be a champion, you need a good pit crew. So I'd be remiss if I did not take a chance to thank all of the family and friends that are here today or far away that have helped us over the course of our law school journey. From parents who have let us move back into our basements, partners who comforted us through stress and anxiety, friends who were patient when we were delayed in returning phone calls and text messages. Your encouragement along the way was the tune-up on track that got us across the finish line. Your support here today got us here, and this degree is in part thanks to you. I also want to take a quick second to thank my own parents. I would not have been able to make it through law school without them for sure. Especially want to give a quick shout out to my dad. It's his birthday today. He's supposed to be on a golf course right now. Dad, this isn't the birthday present I bet you expected, but it did take a lot of preparation, so I hope you enjoy it. I also want to recognize the faculty and staff that have supported us as well. When it came time to vote for Professor of the Year, my first thought was literally everyone. You all have made the transition from in-person to online and back happen, and we are so grateful to have been able to learn under you. Well, like most of the papers I turned in over the past 3 years, I'm keeping this short, sweet, and way under word count. So I will wrap up by paraphrasing the great Al Woods. Congratulations, class of 2022. We did it.
It is now my great honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Scott Swanson. Scott retired in January after 20 years as the law school's Director of Academic Achievement. For 2 decades, he poured himself into our students, teaching, coaching, mentoring, and befriending all who needed support and a listening ear. At his retirement gathering with faculty and staff, Scott sang as his farewell message to our community, Salvation Song by his beloved Avett brothers. The chorus to that song captures the essence of Scott. We came to break the bad, we came to cheer the sad, we came to leave the world behind a better way. Please welcome the class of 2022's resounding choice to serve as commencement speaker, Mr. Scott Swanson.
Sometimes the lights are shining on me. Let me start that over. Sometimes the lights are shining on me. Other times I can barely see. Lately it occurs to me what a long, strange trip it's been. I've been waiting for 50 years to sing that in front of an audience because I think it really reflects, I can't say enough about how tremendously kind this gift from you folks is to me. It allowed me to sit back in my first, 400 hours of retirement because nobody has spent more time on a speech than I have spent on this speech. It allowed me to sit back and sort of reflect upon my life, and the lights are shining on me now. And over the course of the last 45, 50 years, the 66 years I've lived, sometimes I've been very, very confused. It's been a very long, strange trip. So I wanted to welcome people. I want to say hola to those somewhere in the back. There's got to be like a grandma who can't speak English who's wondering what in the world Swanson is saying. But I want to again start with the profound gift that you have given me by asking me to do this. So I'm going to sing a little bit, I'm going to tell a few stories, and I'm going to try to share some humanity with you all. When I started on this, one of the pieces that I remembered telling students all the time when they had important decisions to make, and a lot of times people would come to me and ask about important decisions, what should I do with my life, where should I go with my job, should I move to another state? And I said, transport yourself to when you're 70 years old and look back upon this decision right now. You'll find a lot of decisions get fairly trivial if you can transport yourself. And that's really, I'm nearer to 70 than I am to 60 now, so I've been able to sit back and look back on the decisions of my life. And I sat with the 3x5 index cards. Lisa Schultz has been an inspiration to me through a whole bunch of things in law school. I know she's got 3x5 cards, and I'm still using the 3x5 cards. And I had stacks of cards for things I wanted to say. Earlier in the week, I practiced a speech. I was about halfway through the cards. It was 22 minutes long. And I thought, probably not. They're not going to want that. So I reorganized the cards, and I broke them down into 3 fundamental categories that I wanted to talk about. 1, listening. 2, loss. And 3, hope. Listen, do you want to know a secret? Whoa, 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 please listen. And some of you may remember that tune. That's an old Beatles tune. So my first theme here is about listening. And you folks, you're going to be lawyers, you're going to be counselors. Everybody sort of thinks you come out of law school and you tell people what to do. I've discovered one of the primary things that has allowed me to succeed at what I've done in the last 40 years as a lawyer, as a human being, as somebody who's worked in academic support, is I learned to listen to people. We don't do enough listening. Lawyers don't do enough listening. Listening really is about connecting with people. It always struck me as if you can't connect with people, you're going to have a very hard time working with them. I'm actually back doing some public defender work right now, and I have a client who's the most difficult human being I've ever met in my entire life. But I discovered that if I would take the time to listen and put some limits on his behavior, he can't use the F word on the telephone anymore. But if I listened to him, I found out some things about him that I didn't know. His parents committed suicide when he was a little kid. He's had a stunningly difficult life. Now, he hasn't made anything of it, so he's got some responsibility for that. But I have the same thing with students. You may recall the first year when we talked about, I do a little class, parents and family, I do a little class where I teach some law, and I have the students come talk to me. But I start the conversation with the students with, tell me about yourself. And that true listening, and if you haven't taken a communications class, take one someday, but the true listening has, you just get to talk about you. I've discovered it's a lot easier to talk to somebody who, let's say, grew up in an iron mining town in northern Minnesota, was a Grateful Dead fan, sees the Avett Brothers and has a chemical dependency problem. I know that person. But what if you're an immigrant from East Africa? Your family can't speak English very well. Coming to law school, you're the first person who's ever come to law school. I need to listen very actively with that person, and quite frequently what that means is, listening means shut your mouth, right? So you listen to people, and you can speak, but if they say, and I'll touch the live third rail here, if they say, I'm a Trump supporter. Rob's back here wondering, what's he gonna say now? I know people up north who are Trump supporters, some people, old friends of mine, and I wanna know. I say, talk to me. Tell me where you're coming from. We all have a space we are coming from, and interestingly, one of the things I discovered about the Trump supporters I know from up north, there are a variety of people who support Trump, they felt that nobody was listening to them. And I've discovered that through listening, and interestingly, I also have a therapy degree, and I learned that really, really good counseling, good mental health counselors listen to you. They don't give you advice. They just give back to you what you said to them. Somebody says, I'm a Trump supporter, and I say, you're a Trump supporter, because they'll fill in the blank for you. You're a Latino from West Texas, and I say, so you're a Latino from West Texas. You're a Guatemalan. I say, Guatemalan means fill in the blank. And I've discovered that if you can connect with those people by listening to them and understanding them, now that's cross cultures. When I'm speaking to somebody who is, a Latino person from West Texas who grew up in a household that speaks Spanish, I don't have a lot of shared experience. It is a lot more effort for me to learn from that person. There are times, again, I always used to ask students, how many of you are Grateful Dead fans? And of course, what they didn't know was I was asking how many of you used to do drugs on a regular basis? So I was identifying the people who are problematic human beings in the group through a sort of a charade I was doing. Anyway. I forgot one thing. I at least mentioned, people wonder, well, is he wearing a Hawaiian shirt today? For family and friends, I wear Hawaiian shirts the whole first week. It didn't seem to matter today because I needed to wear this robe, but I do have a Grateful Dead tie on, for those who are wondering about what the tie is. Right? I knew folks were waiting for that. Now, I do have to say a little bit, why did I do that? And I think there's a member of this class who contacted me last week who was somebody, before the person got into law school, I had to contact that person because the person had a history that exceeded my history, and my history was problematic when I went to law school. That exceeded my history, so I called him up, said, come on in. And so the person was a guy, came into the office. He's, I don't know if he's got a haircut, he's just got a suit and a tie on, and wow, that's pretty impressive, because he came into my office. I'm wearing flip-flop sandals and a pair of shorts and a Hawaiian shirt, and I got a ponytail. And so, interestingly, and he told me, and this is one of the most common things I've ever heard from students, is they said, when I saw you in the front of the room, or when I saw you in my office, I was a little bit worried about whether I belonged in law school. And they always say, if he can do it, I sure as hell can do it. So I've had that ability to sort of calm people down. You all belong here. That has always been my message. There's a lot of complex reasons why I still don't get a haircut. I'm still living in 1969. I'm still going to fight with my father over some silly thing. But that was my message with respect to that. Second, I didn't want to be a downer here today, but loss is certainly a part of all of our lives these days. We've all had the COVID loss. Once upon a time, we were hoping that it wasn't going to happen, but if in this room, everybody has now been affected. They've been affected through the loss of loved ones who died. We've been affected by the loss of normalcy, the Christmases that we haven't been able to do for a couple of years, the Easter holidays, the weddings that didn't happen, the christenings that didn't happen. And then we had the people with just sort of regular loss, the divorce, the sibling who died, the spouse who died. Horrible things in terms of how we move on. And I wanted to at least acknowledge that, and I think it's been acknowledged by everybody so far. It's pretty hard to ignore that particular elephant in the room. But I wanted to share a little bit how we can help people with that sort of loss, and it relates back to my listening again, and I got permission to do this. When I announced I was going to retire, or Rob announced I was going to retire, I got an extraordinarily nice note from a student. I've gotten a whole bunch of nice kudos from students, stuff, I keep these things. And the person had experienced a hugely traumatic loss. And the person had called me up. I'd given the person my phone number, and she said, and I'm going to quote, "I felt like there was absolutely no one to talk to, and I hid my struggles from my professors, classmates, and friends." This was a person that I was on the phone with the person, and she believes in retrospect that I saved her by speaking with her. And I'll tell her right now, she doesn't really know this. I said, at that time when I got that phone call, I had no idea what to do. I got no answer to that at all. Your loss is just horrible. And that's all I said. But that was that listening thing that I talked about earlier. The person just needed somebody to talk to. And they didn't need my advice. Going back to, I got a couple of rules about advice. One, nobody wants my advice. Two, even people who say they want my advice don't want my advice. Not entirely true, because I think people, if you can develop the relationship with them and you trust them, you have those trusted friends. Neil Hamilton talks about trusted advisors. People you want to give you the feedback. People you're willing to listen to. Nobody knows it, but I am so sad. Nobody knows it, but I am so sad. And that is the saddest of all, my friend. That is the saddest of all. That sort of speaks worlds to the alone moments that we've had in the last few years. And we have them as a normal part of life. I just think we've had more of them. I have missed seeing your faces. I look across this room, I don't recognize some people because if you don't have your mask on, I don't know what you look like anymore. So I at least wanted to acknowledge that loss thing there, and then finish with what I learned in therapy school is anybody who walks out of your office, and I think this is true for lawyers too, they need hope, right? A person always needs to walk out of the office with hope. And how can you create hope? There's an article in the New York Times today about people who grasp horrible things and learn something from that. And there really, I know of a couple of ways to reframe, challenge yourself a little bit, to create some hope. One way, as I just said, is to reframe something. I saw a therapist one time who said, "Yes, Scott, you got good Scott over here and bad Scott over here. Good Scott over here says, Zoom sucks. Although bad Scott here says, well, I can turn my camera off and go to dinner instead of attend class. Bad Scott says, I am not being connected with people at Zoom. And good Scott says, you know what? My buddies from high school, and I attended a high school on the East Coast outside of Boston, one of them had an idea, let's get together once a week. And we're 100 weeks later and still meeting once a week. For guys that I kind of remember that last night in the dorm we lived in, saying goodbye and thinking, I'll never see them again. Zoom, I can talk to these guys in Guatemala. I can do it, once a month till the end of time. So there are positives that you can take out of these particular things. The other thing is, and this is sort of standard, where I'm doing therapy on you, and it's like, no. This is, as lawyers, you need to do this stuff. You'll see a whole bunch of your clients are people with trouble that are getting divorced. They can't get into the country. Their kids are getting arrested. They're getting arrested. Somebody has died. They've been charged with a crime. These are people who kind of need some help. And interestingly, again, if you start with one, listen to them, you will develop a relationship with them that will allow them to trust you. And that's true even if you're in a business setting. If it's a family business, you'll want to understand how important that family business is to the family. So reframing is one way, but another way is being mindful about who you are. And you can't do other people's mindfulness, but you can stop. And I always remember when I was a little kid, And if you got Grandma here today, you might want to take some advice from her, whatever advice she's got. She's lived a long time. But I remember my grandmother having us say our prayers at night. Some of you may know this one. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. But what an extraordinary discipline. When I went to alcohol treatment almost 40 years ago, one of the things they recommended to me was to say thanks at night. And I actually, 40 years later, I still try to say thanks at night. And I'm not always sure who I'm saying thanks to or why I'm saying thanks. I just remember those days that didn't go very well. And my days now go a lot better. People always, they're impressed that I've been sober for 40 years. You'd be impressed if I was still alive after I was drinking so much. So it's a lot easier to do that. So I want to leave you with one more song. And I forgot Kleenexes, but I was trying to cry on the way in here because I figured I would cry now instead. So forgive me if I do. But I got one more thing I want to sing to you, and it requires a little bit of setup. Many of us, and I'm sure you folks too, I've had this, have had sleepless nights recently. My obligation here, I've had some sleepless nights about that. The Miranda warnings that were read to me when I was in Florida in February, different story, has led to some sleepless nights. But that's, you wake up in the middle of the night, and I have my wonderful wife and my fantastic kids who are here today. It's the, who comes to this, the speaker's family? They come to this? Yeah, they do, and I am immensely proud of those folks. But in any event, so when I'd wake up at night, and this is a song about you're the person next to the person waking it up at night. As I turn my head to your side of the bed, why are you awake? What's on your mind? To this awful news, try not to hold on. The day will come, the sun will rise, and we'll be fine. Congratulations to you folks. There's some challenges ahead, and I think we've worked well to meet them.
Thank you, Scott. It is customary at this point of our celebration to introduce the faculty member who this class has selected as Professor of the Year. So I will now call to the podium the class of 2022's Professor of the Year, Mark Osler. Professor Osler writes and teaches for impact. He has been at the forefront of efforts to reform the criminal justice system in this country on a range of issues, and his teaching is an outgrowth of his advocacy. He doesn't simply teach students how to function in the current legal system, he teaches them how to visualize a more just system, how to make it reality. Notably, his teaching does not stop at the end of class. When I walk by his office, his frequent posture is leaning in, listening intently to a student, encouraging a deeper dive into the subject. He is a treasured member of the St. Thomas Law School community. Class of 2022, please welcome your Professor of the Year, Mark Osler. Okay, now is the moment you've all been waiting for. Let us proceed with the presentation of the hoods. Associate Dean Joel Nichols will be calling out and pronouncing with exquisite precision the graduates' names. Professor Osler will be hooding the graduates, and President Sullivan and I will be offering you our hearty congratulations, depending on your COVID risk tolerance, via handshake, fist bump, elbow bump, or enthusiastic no-contact nod of appreciation. It's up to you. Okay, let's begin. We could use a little audio help at the podium to my left. If there's someone connected with this facility who could help us with a faulty mic. Should we shift over here? Can we do kind of a... Yeah, so we'll just consolidate. Okay. You think? Okay. We've still got there. This is all just intended to show that the resilience and flexibility we showed during the pandemic will not end. It is a life skill. So we're going to just shift a little bit to the right here, and Dean Nichols will call from this podium. Now we're ready to begin.
We'll begin the graduates from the class of 2022 with those receiving degrees in Organizational Ethics and Compliance. Tricia Conley. Griffin Grothy. Shauna Holt. Sierra Cope. Isadora Korak. Roxana Morales. Melissa Cephalo Boyley. Jamie Stonstaby. Sarah Zeeb. Graduates receiving the degree of LL.M. in U.S. Law. Abdul Qadir Abdallah. Flavia Brito Pereira. Cristian Campos Arcos. Rita Castojon. Rodrigo Diaz Montes. Fernando Galvez Soto. Carlos Garces. Daniel Gomez. Paulina Greenham Diaz. Fernando Guerra. Sina Kibede. Ignacio Lizarraga. Mariela Marinque Guillen. Ana Miguel Izquierdo. Mariana Morillo. Julio Pinto. Cesar Rivas. Monica Sanchez Garita. Ana Carolina Ortolani Sorgenfrey. Felipe Sotorf Oraya. Oksana Senyatska. Horst Andre Vandal Martensen. And now, graduates receiving a Juris Doctor. Jesse Kwame Ado. Mulualam Adge. Nina Ali. Sarah Almquist. Berina Altschuler. Jack Amaral. Alexandra Anderson. Marissa Joy Anderson. Ryan Christopher Anderson. David Kwabina Entwi. Olivia Asta. Mitchell Bartholomew. Joe Bushton. Colin Becker. Federico Benvenuto. James Berg. Annie Bokers, hooded by Sandy Smalley Fleming. Patrick Connor Bauer. Lena Brakel. Matthew Justin Braun. Adam Brenna. Christina Brewer. Zachary Butel. Rachel Elizabeth Katiri Kane. Jordan Michael Carew. Mary Grace Carney. Mitchell Cervinka. Macy Coburn. Anna Elizabeth Conrad. Natalie Ruth Cody. Carolyn Coop. Keenan Matthew Crawford. Kaylee Patricia Dahlquist. Ashley Ann DeBoer. Alexis Detbarn. Christopher Diagula. Ryan Dorfler. Taylor Dorfler. Amanda Dorholt. Ryan Patrick Downs. Brian Duras. Alessandra Sabra Duros. Taylor Espick. Madison Fernandez. Ashley Fisher. Joshua Thomas Flagg. Trevor Foster. Evan Friesmeyer. Alexander Freskin. Marissa Garcia. Grant Gibson. Julian Gibson. Jake Goblish. Haley Morgan Grant. Lauren Gunderson. Madeline K. Haberman. B. Hansen. Kendall Hayes. Lindsay Heidel. Aaron Herdeman. Callie Hickman. Chris Hines. Michael Hormiosa. Campbell Hausch. Mason Hoxie. Dalia Nayam Estefanos. Miranda Jansen. Kabau Genrick. Oliver Jurdy. Allie Johnson. Dr. Kristen Ann Johnson. Ricardo Edward Johnson III. Maddie Calgren. Coleman Kelly. Ava Kendrick. Taylor Jacob Kirkala. Bria Quadja. Lauren Kingsbeck. Shauna Michelle Kozel. Nathan Kroschel. Kumel Lakya. Robin Lindemann. Jonah Lubke. Alyssa Noel Lund. Lindsay Lundeen. Brandon Liu. Regan Lynch. Sophia Mayetta. Thomas Scott Magard. Marissa Bree Keat. Mac Marin. Megan Massey. Samantha Match. Zachariah Jonathan May. Thomas Patrick McDermott. Kathleen McDonald. Keats Richard McGraw. Andrea Jane Meitler. Catherine Patricia Mentum. Brandon Mickelson. Mary Claire Mulcahy. Sarah M. Murtada. Yastril Nanez. Emily Nielsen. Miles Norman. Francesca O'Neill. Stephanie Oseguera. Jess Pallion. David Peterson. Christian Poppy. Zachary Port. Cristiani Portugal dos Santos. Aaron Powers. Brandon Preem. Samantha Prinz. Catherine Quinlan. Victor Rhyme. Roxanne Sidney Reinfeld. Emily Christine Revere. Josie Rosine. Catherine Christine Running. Erica Saluta. Kayla Christine Schmitz. Kristen Schwingler. Nicholas Jonathan Shimmick. Martha Snipstead. Jordan Spoor. Delaney Addison Steen. Brooke Christine Stensgaard. Corey Leonard Strecker. Jill Strodoff. Kayla Swenson. Savin Talwar. Pusen Then. Natalie Marie Thomas. Malin Toy. John Tro. Brooke Carol Trottier. April Torito. Morgan Twomley. Julia Ochoa Rogers. Nicole Waller. Sonia Weber. Alexis Wentworth. Matthew Wormerskirken. Tyler James Westman Conroy. Samuel Todd Westby. Gregory Peter Westerhouse. Freya Whiting. Kate Whitney. Andrew Shackelford Wilson. Derek Whitty. Peter Wallen. Vince Wren. Peyton Yan. And Sarah Michelle Yaski, the class of 2022.
we have one more quite important task on the agenda. I am going to now ask President Sullivan to come to the podium to formally confer your degrees upon you. For the candidates for the Juris Doctor, LL.M, and Masters in the Study of Law degrees, the conferral will now be done by our president, Dr. Julie Sullivan.
It's such a privilege and an honor to be here with you today to celebrate with you and your families. We're so proud of these degrees that you've earned, and we're looking forward with great delight and excitement at the positive impacts that we know you're going to have on your professions and on your communities. And always remember your Tommies. So now I would like to ask the candidates for degrees to please stand. Upon the recommendation of the faculty, and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I, Julie Sullivan, President of the University of St. Thomas, confer upon you the degrees you have earned with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto. Congratulations. Please be seated. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Now, we need to address that cap toss that just happened. You might, those of you who are honored guests here, you might say that was a rather hesitant and half-hearted cap toss. But let me assure you, by law school standards in the midst of a pandemic, that qualifies as enthusiastic. Our graduates, being well-trained in the law, are well aware of potential liability exposure from an errant cap toss. So that display was about as risk-tolerant as you will see them get. So good job, graduates. Two quick housekeeping announcements as we close. First, I invite all of you to a reception in the Schultz Grand Atrium of our law building, which is just a couple of blocks away down 12th Street. And if your favorite graduate cannot direct you how to get there, I have some serious questions for them about their class attendance. Second, for those of you who might have some difficulty navigating that walk, we will have a shuttle bus that will pick you up in front of the convention center and take you there. Now to conclude. This is the last time I'm going to have you all together as a captive audience, so I'm going to exercise the dean's prerogative and give you two final admonitions. First, keep the sense of community going after you walk out of here today. Keeping that sense of community is going to require you being proactive. That's going to probably, for many of you, be the biggest jolt when it comes on Monday, is you're not all getting together in the same place again. So you have to be proactive. Make the call, send the text, get together. And don't just stay in touch with each other, stay in touch with us. Let us know how you're doing, where you're headed, and how we can help. Many of you heard me talk way back in an admitted applicant event before you enrolled, and one thing I emphasize is that you will be just as much a part of our law school community when you're out there in the profession as you were when you were sitting in class. You have been through a lot together. Community was an important part of your experience here. It's even more important in the years to come, so cherish what you have right here, right now, and keep it going. Second, take a moment and appreciate this milestone. Lawyers by nature tend to be professional worriers. We are much better at dreading future worst-case scenarios than we are at appreciating the present. The past couple of years have had plenty of worst-case scenarios to occupy us, but don't let your worries about what comes next distract you from the reality that today's milestone is big. You are law school graduates. Yes, for the JD grads, you still have to pass the bar, and you should put everything you've got into making sure you do all the work your prep course asks you to do. But not today. And yes, many of you still have that job search hanging over you, and you need to take that seriously, but not today. Here's a little secret that your parents or older relatives can confirm on the chance that you haven't learned it yet. There will always be something big coming next to worry about. And when what's coming next occupies all of our waking moments, we can unintentionally diminish our capacity for joy. This is a moment for joy. Let yourself be present in this moment. I will ask our guests today to remain seated until the platform party, our faculty, and the members of the class of 2022 have left the auditorium. Thank you very much. One more congratulations for the members of the class of 2022.